Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the Fitness Walking webinar. Today's presenter is Martha Swirzinski, and I'm going to go ahead and let her take over.
Hello, everybody. As Erin said, my name is Martha Swirzinski. I'm excited to be here. I want to thank WITS for having me to be here on the webinar today. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about myself so you know who you're listening to. I currently work at Thomas Nelson Community College as an associate professor in health and physical education. I teach both face-to-face, online, and hybrid courses. I have my master's degree in kinesiology from the University of Maryland, go Terps, and I have my doctorate degree in curriculum and instruction from Liberty University. And so I really enjoy writing curriculum. I've also been a personal trainer for the last 25 years and have seen, as I'm sure most of you have, so many fads in the industry come and go. I've been with WITS for the last 10 years as one of their instructors, and I teach some of their face-to-face courses as well as one of their online courses, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later in this webinar. I actually own my own company called Movement Plus. Whoops, I don't know how I did that. Movement Plus, which is an educational consulting company for early childhood education. And this is where I train teachers to use movement as a teaching tool across the curriculum. And then I'm a mom of 2 teenage girls, so I'm definitely busy trying to keep up with them. And I'm a rescue dog mom with 2 dogs at the moment. So you will excuse me if they decide to speak up during this webinar. Hopefully they will stay nice and quiet for me. So first poll question, I'll let Erin take this part.
All right, everybody, we're going to start our first poll question here. It is, how many of you participate in fitness walking on your own for your own health? Click either yes, I do, or no, I don't. We'll give everybody a few minutes to go ahead and answer. Give everybody a couple more seconds here. All right, so 83% of participants today do participate in fitness walking and 17% do not. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm glad to see so many of you participate in fitness walking, and I'm really excited to see that some of you don't, and you're here on this webinar. So welcome, everybody. What I want to say is that there's a lot of information regarding fitness walking, and we only have 1 hour together. But what's great about this is if you find yourself wanting to know more, WITS does offer this as a 6-credit online course. And occasionally you might find it even in your area as a 1-day 6-credit course. So like I said before, I'm going to touch on a lot of things, but I'm not going to be able to go in depth on a lot of those topics. I'm just going to kind of touch on them. So once again, if you want to learn more, go to the WITS website and take a look at the online course that they offer. The course ebook that they use is the Walking Solution, Get People Walking for Results. And a lot of the information that I'm talking with you about today is going to come from that textbook. So let's talk about benefits. And now I know you're here with WITS, so you are already in the industry and you're like, yes, Martha, we know that there are physical benefits if you are moving. But I always like to go over them. And certainly I'm not going to name all of them, but when we get up and we're moving and we're active, it increases and improves our coordination, our eating and sleeping habits, our energy and stamina, our muscle growth, flexibility, motor skills, lifelong healthy habits, bone density, and helps us lose weight. So we know if you're physically active and you go walking, that you're going to see benefits in the physical domain. But what a lot of individuals don't know, or a lot of our clients don't understand, is that there are benefits in all of the domains. And when I'm talking to my students, I want them to understand that all of the domains they're going to see benefits, because I think so many people get hung up on just the physical part, which is great, but a lot of times, and I'm sure you can attest to this, people just want to know about losing weight, or inches or gaining muscle. Not that that's bad, but there's so much more to being active. And so I like to talk to my students and clients about the other benefits. And so when we look at the cognitive domain, when people go out and they get walking, what we see increases in their attention span, in their spatial perception, in their memory formation, in their decision-making skills. Research even shows that it increases your brain cells. So if for some reason you have killed off some brain cells in your life, good news, you can get some of them back. According to the Harvard Health blog, exercise helps build memory and thinking through both direct and indirect means. The benefits of exercise come directly from its ability to reduce insulin resistance, inflammation, stimulate the release of growth factors, and chemicals in the brain that affect the health of brain cells. So you get the growth of new blood vessels in the brain and even the abundance and survival of new brain cells. And we have seen that there are many studies that suggest that the parts of the brain that control thinking and memory actually have greater volume in people who exercise versus people who don't. And I want to read from John Medina. He's the author of Brain Rules, which is a really great book if you ever get a chance to read it. It's a really easy read, and he has a website as well. So once again, his name is John Medina, and he's the author of the book Brain Rules. And he states, exercise improves cognition for two reasons. First, it increases oxygen flow into the brain, which reduces brain-bound free radicals. And one of the most interesting findings of the past few decades is that an increase in oxygen is always accompanied by an uptick in mental sharpness. I thought that was a really neat point. He also states that exercise acts directly on the molecular machinery of the brain itself. So it increases neurons' creation, their survival, and their resistance to damage and stress. So we need to move and groove so that we can feed our brain and keep it healthy. And then the social domain. How is fitness walking social? Well, it's because it's for all ages. Anybody can go out and go for a walk. I have a little story. So a few years ago, I was doing a presentation on a Saturday morning at the YMCA. And if you're familiar with the YMCA, they have the Silver Sneakers program. And so I was getting all set up. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. I was in the gym, and they were doing their laps. And what I noticed was how much fun they were having because they were talking. They were doing a great pace. They were definitely getting their steps in, but more than that, I saw laughing and people communicating and being social, which, let's face it, in this day and age, everyone thinks they're being social, but social media really doesn't count. The other thing is, in my neighborhood, everyone seems to have a dog. So we're all out walking our dogs, being social with our neighbors, and even get to see people that I don't normally see because I'm out walking the dog. And I walk with my neighbors or I walk with my children. So socially, it's a fantastic way to get people together. And then the emotional domain. What we know through research is that when people are active, it reduces stress, anxiety, depression, and anger. It actually releases those pleasure chemicals, serotonin and dopamine. And so it makes us feel calm, happy, and euphoric. And so once again, it's just a little brief demonstration of how being active helps us in all the domains. And I think it's really important that we express that to our clients over and over again, that sometimes they get so caught up on that scale or a pair of pants that we need to show them those non-scale victories. And these are definite ways to do it. So I have a few of these walking fun facts that I put in there because I thought they were fun. And I'm just going to tell you, I have no idea if some of these are true or not, but I thought they were great. So this one, it looks a little fuzzy on my end. It says, the longest walk around the world was completed by a former neon sign salesman, John Bellevue. He walked over 46,000 miles around 64 countries, and the trip took him 11 years. I would like to know how many pairs of shoes he went through. That's what I want to know. So that's a little fun fact for the day. There are more to come. So, believe it or not, there are different ways to walk. And in the book, the textbook that I showed you earlier for the online class, it goes into great depth about these, but I'm going to give you a little blurb on each one of them. So everyday walking, this is that kind of walking where you amble around your house or place of work. You're trekking to and from your car, maybe you're shopping or doing some other kind of activities, and it only requires a little bit of light intensity. And so researchers actually refer to this incidental activity as non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. And while these steps aren't going to improve cardio fitness necessarily, studies do show that they are vital to good health and well-being. And let's face it, over the last 50 years or so, people are doing a lot less of this type of walking as we go through drive-throughs for everything, or we just we have remote controls. We don't even have to get up to change our television anymore, and so people are walking less and less. At the school where I teach, right outside my door, you can either take the steps or the elevator, and I will stand there and give my students, I'm like, you are not taking that elevator, you are gonna walk the steps, and they kind of laugh when they see me. But people are just taking what I say is the easy way out. And so while you're not going to build your classes around this type of walking, it is important to educate your clients on the importance of being active outside of your formal exercise sessions. And with the popularity of activity monitors that people have these days, it's really easy to help them set goals and track their progress around this behavior. The next category is leisure walking, and this is that kind of easy walking or strolling with your arms hanging down at your sides and with minimal stopping. So a leisure walk might involve walking while chatting with a friend, walking your dog, or even when you're doing errands. It's relaxed, the effort is light, it's light enough that you can talk to your friend or sing if you so desire. And a walk at this low to moderate level of intensity, it's great for socializing, relaxing, it's great for getting fresh air and vitamin D, and it has similar benefits as your everyday walking. And then we have brisk walking. And this is when you're walking, it's going to become a little bit more purposeful. And it starts to count towards meeting that physical activity guideline recommendations for moderate intensity exercise. And this is usually what we mean when we talk about fitness walking. And this can happen at a range of effort levels, a variety of speeds, and it all depends on the individual. So this level intensity induces more labored breathing, it increases the heart rate, they might start sweating a little bit. And interestingly enough, there's a couple studies that show if a walker actually thinks to themselves, I'm going to walk briskly, they're going to hit the right stride. And if they're looking to become fitter, lose weight, lower their blood pressure, this is that type of walking that's going to improve those health indicators. And then we have power walking. And this is a term that they use to describe aerobic, or maybe you've heard of speed walking. And this requires that muscle power is activated for each step, and that's a little bit different from running. See, there's no spring action happening through the knee joint during this walking gait as can happen during running. Each step requires the active muscle power to go fast and get fit. And this type of walking also employs a technique to speed up and is usually done at a moderate to vigorous intensity and definitely will improve your cardiorespiratory fitness. Now, race walking. This is actually an Olympic sport, and it's a technical type of walking that is governed by two rules. First, one foot must always be in contact with the ground, and second, the front leg must remain straight from the point of the heel contact with the ground until the body passes over it. And in competitions, this is how individuals can be disqualified if they break either one of those rules. The race walking technique, it involves a lot more hip rotation, and we're going to see that in a second because I have a video I want to show you. But this is definitely a vigorous activity. And Olympic race walkers, they can complete miles in as little as 6 minutes. Like, that is fast. And then the last one, interval walking. And so we all know about intervals, and this is really, it's beneficial for all exercisers. And by doing short bouts, even as little as 10 seconds of high intensity activity, interval walking can be a less intimidating way of getting your walkers to push themselves out of their comfort zones and achieve greater benefits. So this is a fantastic way, if you're already running a walking group, to introduce this and to get them just to challenge themselves a little bit more. So the next time you start to say just walking, or you hear someone say that, remember, there are many ways to walk, and all of them offer benefits to a variety of people. and you're going to be the perfect person to share that joy of walking with a wider audience. So right now I want to show you a video on race walking. Let's see.
In 1908, Olympics founder Pierre de Coubertin spoke the phrase that would become the Olympic creed. The important thing in life is not the triumph, but the fight. The essential thing is not to have won, but to have fought well. This is the fight. This is race walking. Why are they walking like that? This is an Olympic event where men and women walk 20 kilometers, 12.4 miles, and men go as far as 50 kilometers, 31 miles, and the best go at less than 7 minutes a mile. 7 minutes.
It's hypnotic and very, with all that hip action, it's very dancey.
They look like they're rushing to the bathroom. Tell me, do we know why they walk like that?
Phil, we're in luck. We do know why they're walking like that. People study this. There are actually dozens of papers about race walking. I talked to one researcher who wrote his PhD thesis on the biomechanics of the race walk. He has studies with names like kinematic characteristics of elite men's 50-kilometer race walking. This is some serious science here.
Okay, so they actually study why race walkers walk like that.
Yeah, they don't just study it, they track it.
This little Tron-like thing that is on the screen with the race walker, this is an actual top race walker who they've studied how she walks.
Yeah, this is a top race walker. They are tracking her every articulation of the joint. They're seeing what makes her go so fast while walking. There's a good reason why they walk like that. They're pushing their bodies to the extreme. They have to conform to one very important number, 230.2.
What is 230.2?
You don't know 230.2?
No, what is 232?
It is the rule of race walking.
What?
Researcher Brian Hanley explained.
There's one rule, it's rule 230.2.
Judges use rules to make sure people are walking, not running. There's a big difference.
So one part states that you can't have any visible loss of contact with the ground.
So if one foot is kind of in the air like this, then another has to be on the ground, or at least to the human eye?
Yeah, walkers can trick the judges for about 40 milliseconds. So, when you're running, there's this point where you have no feet on the ground. It's kind of crazy when you watch that in a slow motion of how people run. We're kind of like jumping from one foot to the other. Judges are looking out for this. They call it flight time, and it's illegal. And judges do boot people out.
So it's kind of like traveling in basketball. Sometimes these guys will take an extra step, and if the ref doesn't catch it or call it, it just means they're a good player. It means they know what they're doing.
You figured it out.
Yeah.
It's all about that. If the judges can't see, flight time flies.
And the other rule is that the knee must be straightened from when you make first contact with the ground until it passes under your butt.
Okay, so it looks like they almost kind of lock their knee.
That's what gives it its sort of unusual look.
The speed of your walk is your stride length times your stride frequency. So you can take long steps or fast steps. Ideally, you're going to do both. But race walkers have a limited stride length. They can't jump. They can't bend their knee. They can't run. So they have to figure ways to step faster. They rotate their pelvis like this.
So that helps them get longer steps.
Okay.
And they also drop their hips down lower.
It will keep your center of mass low. So you don't end up with a bouncing motion. You kind of end up with a smooth motion.
It does look really smooth. If you just look at their upper body, it's just a straight line. There is no bouncing.
They walk in a very straight line.
Race walkers put their feet in a straight line. Good analogy, it's like a tightrope. It helps them do that rotation of the pelvis. It makes their steps longer.
So basically these walkers figured out how to fit the rules and make walking more efficient, but more efficient ends up looking kind of weird.
That looks weird to you, but this is strategy. The best athletes look for an edge. Bicyclists drift to reduce wind resistance, wrestlers dehydrate to lower their weight class, and race walkers,
They wiggle. Okay, I got it. I have one more question.
fine.
Okay, so is this actually fun to watch?
Yeah, it actually is because it's so cutthroat and exhausting. Plus, there's this.
But it's really interesting as well because you never know who's going to win because they could always get disqualified. So it makes it more exciting than a running race. You can see the real sort of human struggle.
And we can learn things from this struggle.
race walkers are walking differently because they've got these rules. It forces them to walk a different way, and that can teach us more about normal people walking.
We're all walking based on rules. Rules are body sets, the way we're built, like the bounce in this guy's step, or how this woman swings her arm. Like, that's the excitement of sports. You're giving people these absurd, sometimes really absurd rules, these confines to work within. And we know what the rules are. The drama is how people deal with them.
Getting disqualified from an elite race walking race would be a brutal blow, so they try to keep it fair. Most rules require that 3 different judges each give you a red card before you can be disqualified from a race.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that video. I thought it was very helpful to be able to see race walking, some of the techniques they talk about, and the rules on which they can get disqualified. So moving on, I want to talk to you about the gait cycle. And so while walking may look and feel like a basic forward motion, it's actually quite complex. While the main action of walking occurs in the sagittal plane, there is movement across all planes happening within the body during the gait cycle. Much of it you wouldn't notice just as the average observer. Your hips abduct and adduct moving in the frontal plane, while the pelvis, hips, knees, and even the feet rotate in the transverse plane. And the gait cycle consists of all the events that occur from one footstep to the next. And when walking, at least one foot is always on the ground. And so there are 2 primary phases of the gait cycle. You've got the stance phase and the swing phase. And the stance phase is when one or both feet are in contact with the ground. And the swing phase is when one foot is in the air. And the stance phase, it accounts for about 60% of the cycle, while the swing phase is the remaining 40%. Now, the stance phase can actually be broken down into single support when only one foot is on the ground, and double support when both feet are on the ground. And we go into this a little bit more in depth in the online fitness walking class. Here's another fun fact. This guy actually designed a device that lets you take your fish for a walk. I think that is very elaborate fish walking device. I don't know how many he sold, but good for him. Now, what I want to talk to you about now are what we call common gait deviations. And as you begin to coach walkers, you're going to probably see deviations from typical gait patterns. And many things can affect a person's gait, from their age and their body size to injuries and even the style of their shoes. Now, as a walking coach, you're not expected to do gait analysis on your clients. In fact, please refrain from it unless you've had training. However, there are some common deviations that can be corrected or at least minimized as you teach people about good posture and good walking techniques. And so you want to know when you can help them, when you talk about the techniques, and when you need to refer them to a healthcare professional. Because sometimes gait problems can have a neurological cause as well. So the first one is rounded upper body, or we call it looking down. And you've seen it before. It's that hunched over posture that most people assume when they're in front of their computers, on their phones, or sitting behind the wheel in their cars. And I'm going to ask you right now, as you're listening to this webinar, are you sitting up? Do you have good posture? And if not, you need to straighten up, right? And unfortunately, most of your clients are going to bring that poor posture to walking. And spending too much time, as we know, in this type of posture can actually cause weak back muscles and tight chest muscles. Now, sometimes your clients are going to assume this position when they're walking because, well, quite honestly, they're worried about tripping and falling. And it's also a common response to walking in cold, windy weather. So believe it or not, dressing appropriately for the weather can actually help improve their posture. And when people straighten up, they look and feel better, and their walking actually becomes easier. So once again, if this is something that has more to do maybe with an older adult and it's part of a spinal disorder, then that's something that would be handled by their doctor. And then bending at the waist. This is when people start to walk for exercise and they are so enthusiastic. They are just ready to go, 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 go. and they want to get moving, and sometimes they actually end up bending at the waist and leading with their heads out in front of their bodies. And so this misaligned posture actually puts a lot of stress on the low back, and really at the end of maybe a very long walk, they're going to feel it. So simply sometimes just making people aware of what they're doing, showing them proper posture, and reminding them to stand tall can usually help minimize or at least correct the problem. And then bouncing. So walking should not appear to be an up and down motion. And bouncing when walking is usually caused by an improper push-off or excessive striding. So instead of pushing off forward to propel the body in the direction we want to go, the walker actually ends up pushing off with upward momentum, or maybe they're taking too long of a stride. And a lot of times a walker who bounces is often one who walks on their toes. And then the arm swing. So once you start watching people walk, you're going to be amazed to see all of the different ways that people move their arms while walking. Some people punch forward, some people wing their elbows out to the sides, they swing their arms across their bodies, they have flailing arms, and much more. And actually, all of this upper body movement can affect their gait. At the very least, it's just not efficient and it slows their pace down. So teaching them proper arm swing is usually very effective in correcting those movements. And so these are some of the common ones you might see and that you can work with them to minimize them. Now, this slide talks about more challenging gait deviations. And these are not as easily adjusted, and in most cases, you're going to refer them to a doctor. But I do want to take a look at least 3 of them. So foot slapping is one that you may have seen individuals do, and it's that loud slapping landing that lets us know that the walker is landing flat-footed instead of striking the ground, first with the heel, then rolling onto the midfoot, ball of the foot, and the toes. And a lot of times, just making someone aware of the sound their feet are making and instructing them in the proper foot roll might help. But believe it or not, another cause may be related to the shoes they're wearing. A stiff shoe will make it more difficult to do that roll from heel to toe. So take a look at their shoe, and we'll actually be talking about apparel a little bit later in the webinar. And then foot scuffing. This occurs when the foot of the swinging leg skims the ground as it's coming forward. And it may happen because the supporting leg is bent instead of being fully extended, or another cause sometimes could be weak core muscles, and it allows that hip to drop. However, if you're noticing this problem with your client at the end of a session, it may just be because fatigue is a contributor. So make sure you're paying attention. Is it happening all the time, or just at the very end when you've given them a really good fitness walking workout? And then the last one is upper body sway. And so if you notice upper body swaying, check their foot position, because side to side movement of the upper body is often a result of walking with the feet spread too far apart. And so they really should be positioned under the pelvis as parallel as possible and close together, because a wide foot position is going to slow you down, and a narrower one allows you to go faster, and it reduces that sideways motion of the upper body, because you want to direct your energy forward, like that's the way you're going. So I challenge you to start to go out and watch people walk, and identify the stages of the gait cycle, the swing phase and the stance phase, and notice all the different variations in the way they walk. And notice that when they go faster, their gait changes. Because I believe that the more you observe, the more your coaching skills will be enhanced, and it just reinforces what you learn and builds your knowledge, and that's what you're going to be sharing with your clients. So we're going to talk about this in terms of a coaching technique. There are 4 progressions. And so let me back up just a second. Really, over the decades that most of us have been walking, we have developed a very patterned and recognizable gait. And think about it. It is possible to recognize a friend or a family member by their gait before you even recognize their face. Right? I can definitely tell my husband from far away if I don't have my glasses on just by the way he walks. Now, without my glasses on, I wouldn't be able to make him out. And anatomy is partially responsible for this. But if you think about it, every time we walk, our patterns are being reinforced, creating those strong neural pathways from brain to muscle, right? A message starts in the brain, it's sent along a neural pathway to the necessary muscle for activation. And we don't actually think about every muscle contraction when we're walking. It just happens. But believe it or not, even though we've been walking for years, we can still improve our gait. And like I said before, there is a coaching technique that we go in much more in depth in the online course that helps us to improve our client's gait. And there are 4 progressions, and I'm just going to touch on them briefly. But I do want to let you know, it takes repeated reminders and lots of patience if you want to help your clients rewrite that neural pathway messaging, because once again, we've created this over decades of walking. So progression 1. This is where we really focus on the position and movement of the upper body. It's where we call it eyes up, elbows bent. So we're going to take a look at, are their eyes up? Is their chin level to the ground? Are their shoulders down and back, right? We talk a lot about their hand positioning. We want the hands relaxed. Believe it or not, we take a look at where their fingers are in relation to their thumb. This picture shows a little bit of what we look at. And then in progression 2, we address the position and movement of the lower body, and we want them to have short, quick steps. So we really go into detail about that. The 3rd progression is recruitment of the muscles in the posterior chain of both the upper and lower body. And then the last progression is really for those clients of yours that are gung-ho. They're really trying to refine their walking, and they're looking to enhance their speed. And this is where we start looking at hip rotation. And you saw a little bit of that in the video clip on race walking. So once again, that's the coaching technique that has 4 progressions that we talk about. All right, look at this, another fun fact. The average human walking speed is about 3.1 miles per hour. I am short, so I've always had to walk really fast. So I'm going to say I walk faster than that, just because I always have to keep up with the tall people in my family. All right, poll question number 2, Erin.
All right, so for our second poll question, it is, how many of you talk to your clients about their workout gear? Answer yes, I do, or no, I do not. Give everybody a few moments. All right, 83% said yes, they do, and 17% said they do not.
Was
I'll go
that
ahead
like
and
the
turn this
same
back
as
over to
the
you.
first question, I think? I think we almost had the exact same results. Well, fantastic. I think that's awesome. So I do want to talk to you just a little bit about apparel. And there's a picture of a shoe. Pretty exciting, right? Well, one of the reasons walking is popular is because, let's face it, it doesn't really require any special clothing or gear. I mean, we can walk in whatever we're wearing, put on a pair of sneakers, and walk with our neighbors or walk home from the office. And it's this ease that appeals to many people when they want to join your walking program. So it's really a bit of a balancing act when you're going to advise walkers on apparel. And this is a reason that you really need to understand who your audience is and who your clients are. See, if they're already avid walkers who want to take walking to the next level, discussions on technical gear are going to inspire them and motivate them, and they're going to geek out with you, and that is fantastic. But for some individuals, they're just trying to make walking a habit, and it may actually discourage them. If they think that they have to worry about what they're wearing, it actually can create another obstacle, and it gives them one more reason to stay home. For them, the idea of not having to change clothes to go for a walk might be the reason they're doing this. So really, the key message when we're talking about sports-specific technical clothing is that it improves performance by increasing comfort. And so that's what I'll talk to my clients about. I mean, for example, the right clothing can prevent one of the biggest walking discomforts, and that's skin chafing. That skin-to-skin contact, like under the arms or between the thighs, that causes breakage of skin. The rubbing of a shoe that causes a blister, that's uncomfortable, and that's going to stop you from working out and walking right there. But I thought this was interesting. A study that I read, and I'm sorry I don't have the citation for it, but it did say, and I quote, that when wearing specialty clothes for exercise, it creates a mindset of empowerment, commitment, and excellence. And I love that. I thought that was fantastic. But let's just talk a little bit about some tips that we can give our clients on buying shoes. So first and foremost, if they're new to it, I really do recommend that they go to a specialty running store in the area. And I, as their coach, would make sure that I would have the names and addresses of a few of them to go to. Because these specialty stores, they have the experience with the various shoes on the market, and they understand what shoes suit each individual because of their body type, their gait, and foot movement. And they all have different shoe requirements. Some other tips that I tell them is to shop late in the day, not first thing in the morning, but late in the day when feet are usually at their largest and swollen because you've been standing around or doing other activity throughout the day. Also, if you can, and I think this is really important, bring a pair of well-used walking shoes so that the salesperson can see the wear pattern on the tread. This helps identify your foot movement is either neutral, pronating, or supinating, and then they can suggest a suitable shoe, right? Because feet that overpronate or oversupinate, they need shoes with the appropriate support to neutralize their gait. Now, this is something a lot of people forget. Bring your socks. Now, they don't have socks you can try on, but I know for myself, I have a favorite brand that I wear. And so this will affect the fit of a shoe. If I use their socks, it's not going to fit the same as when I use my socks. And believe it or not, in the online course, we actually go into more detail about socks. So you want to wear your socks. Also, I tell my clients all the time, test the shoes before you purchase. Those specialty stores get it. They usually have a track or a treadmill, and you can take a few laps. I personally get on the treadmill and I'll run for 5 minutes or more because you want to make sure that there's no rubbing, no discomfort, or no hot spots, right? The right shoe is going to feel good right away. There's no breaking in. That's not really a thing anymore. This really dates me, but way back when I was in school, I wore saddle Lockfords. I bet some of you don't even know what those are. Those things were stiff and took lots of breaking in. The other thing that I would suggest is you can try on different brands. Don't just stick with one brand, but change. I have found that over the years, even the brands I like, they change their design, and it's not always the best for me. And then here's a big one, replacing shoes. So shoes really have only so many miles that they're good for. My husband gives me a hard time all the time because he says, your shoes look great. I'm like, no, they don't. They're breaking down. And that's what happens. Over time, shoe materials break down and they become less supportive. And this deterioration is not always visible. So they actually say that shoes should be replaced at least every 300 to 500 miles. So for example, someone who averages a 15-minute per mile pace, they walk 3 hours a week, they're going to need to replace their shoes every 6 to 9 months. And if you have a heavier walker or they notice their soles are wearing down quickly or unevenly, then they're going to want to replace them on the lower end of the range. And another indicator that it's time to replace your shoes is if the walker notices any discomfort in their hip, knees, or feet. All of my clients, even if they're not my fitness walking class, no matter what they're doing, if they start to tell me about hip, knee, or back, first thing I do is I ask them about their shoes. Okay, so once again, in the online class, we'll actually go into more detail about heel cushioning, forefoot, like I said before, socks, everything. All right, so poll question number 3. Erin?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that. The next poll question is, how many of you encourage your clients to get out and engage in fitness walking on a regular basis? Select either yes, I do, or no, I do not. Give everybody a few more seconds here. All right, let's see here.
We
We have
have.
91% that do and 9% that don't.
Wow, okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, like we said before, I think it's a fantastic thing to, even if you're not doing a fitness walking class, to encourage your clients to, you've heard it before, park your car a little bit farther away so you have to walk and take the stairs instead of the elevator. A gal where I teach at Thomas Nelson, she will get up and go and talk to people around campus instead of sending them emails just to get some of her steps in. So what I want to do now is I want to take a little bit of a turn and I want to talk about what makes a good fitness walking coach. And really this goes for any kind of coach. But the secret of any successful fitness program is a knowledgeable and motivating coach. And this is especially true for walking programs because let's face it, walking is something that people can do on their own, right? We've heard this before, really, who needs a coach to go walking? Or, well, I already know how to walk. But few people are going to break out of a stroll when walking on their own. And they're really not going to achieve that moderately vigorous walk. Most of them fall in that leisure walking like we talked about before. So a good coach actually has the power to transform walking into an athletic, heart-pumping workout. They can build community around walking that actually helps make sticking to exercise a lot easier. And they can inspire people to get that transformational change that we want them to be. So let's look at some things that make you be a great coach. Authenticity. A simple definition of the word authentic is basically genuine or real. And so what do we mean exactly when we talk about someone's authenticity? Well, an authentic coach has integrity and lives what they coach. And research shows, or there's a bunch of information about the qualities that authentic leaders have. And one article states that there are 4. And it states that these are people who constantly learn and grow. They're able to manage their emotions to communicate effectively, even in difficult situations. They're willing to admit their mistakes, and they're sensitive to the needs of others. So you want to learn and grow, and you want to live what you coach. You got to walk the talk, right? If you want to inspire people to walk for exercise, you're going to have to enjoy doing it yourself. At Thomas Nelson, we have a fitness walking class. And years ago, there was an adjunct who she was teaching the course that we designed. And she wasn't going walking with any of the students. She just sent them out for the hour on their own. So they were very upset. They weren't feeling like she was part of the class, that she didn't enjoy it. And so anyway, so you want to be someone who enjoys doing it, right? And when you enjoy it, only then can you find your authentic coaching voice, and your enthusiasm is infectious, right? When you love what you do, everyone is going to want to walk with you and they're going to trust your expertise. And then listening, because everyone loves to be heard. But if you're a skilled and active listener, your participants are going to give you a high score for coaching, right? But you have to ask questions because that's the precursor to listening. And you do that when you start with your health questionnaire before participants even join your program. But during class, are you asking questions? Are you saying, how was your week? Tell me about your walks. And listen to their answers so that you're always learning. Because listening is the foundation of learning. Coaching your participants to success happens when you know as much as possible about their ability to walk and their walking goals, and then you use that knowledge to personalize how you coach them. So let's take a look at knowledge. Basically, you got to know your stuff. Just as you listen to your participants, we should keep listening to experts in the field. We want to stay on top of the latest research in health and fitness. And obviously, anything that's specific to walking performance is important. Go to conferences, take webinars, right? And learn about the latest trends and research. Follow some experts on social media, because the more you know about anything that can affect the physical and mental health of participants, the more you bring authentic, authoritative leadership to your role as a coach. Now, another important thing with knowledge is know what you don't know. I mean, truly understanding what you do not know and being honest about it is absolutely essential to being an authentic coach. It speaks to your integrity and makes any advice your clients, any advice you offer to your clients more meaningful. They're going to come to respect you when you know when to refer them to a doctor, when you say that that's out of my scope. So once again, just know what you don't know. And then adaptability. Adapt your programming. So you have to be mindful of the responses that you're getting from the people in your classes. So your ability to be attentive to how your participants react to your programming and your class structure, it's going to play a vital role in ensuring their success as walkers and, well, honestly, your success as a coach. So during your classes, are you watching people's facial expressions? Are you watching their body language? Because if you see grim faces, slumping bodies, and shuffling feet, you might be pushing them too hard. You might need to find a way to let them recover and recharge a little bit. Or maybe the opposite is happening. Everyone's just chatting away and the intensity of their efforts are really not enough to challenge them. Well, then it's time to find your motivational voice and get them going, because they're in class to be challenged. Because like we said before, otherwise they can be walking and talking on their own without a coach. And then objectives. You always need to know your primary coaching objectives. Every time you develop a session or lead a class, you need to embark on the task knowing what you want to accomplish. And so it actually helps to communicate your objective to your class participants, because when they understand why you're doing something, they're more likely to embrace your plan. It's just like when you teach a class and you have to have objectives for every class and you get a syllabus, it helps when those students know what's going to happen. So under that too, you want to define your program. Class sessions that run 6 to 8 weeks actually tap into that very well-known physiological ability of the body to change in that time. Anything shorter than 6 weeks, then people may not notice a change. Anything longer than 8 weeks, then they might lose that sense of commitment or sense of purpose. So consider the time frame that you're doing it and have specific goals over all of those weeks. For example, you may want to introduce some strength training exercises during a session, add some push-ups and lunges to do it, really talk about flexibility, but take a look at the 6 to 8 weeks that you're doing it. And then you want to plan each class, because I'm going to tell you, the very first goal for any class is to begin and end on time. This is one of the most basic ways to show respect for your participants. And it helps to have a method to communicate, so let them be able to text you. And then also you might want to have a loop that you do with your walking group, so anybody that is showing up a little bit later, you can loop through and pick them up. But just make sure that you're always starting and ending on time. Got to make sure I end this on time, right? So anyway, so those are some of your objectives. And don't forget, you want to manage your individual objectives of your clients. So you plan for the program, you plan for the class, but you also need individual objectives. And this is definitely a balancing act with a fitness walking class, because you might have some walkers who do half marathons, and they're going to have different needs and coaching requirements than the participants who are just there for that self-contained workout. It can be very tempting to show extra attention to the person who's training for a race or the one who's always asking questions. So you really have to stop and ask yourself, are you meeting the needs of individuals in a way that doesn't leave other people feeling left out? And ultimately, your objective is to lead an energizing, motivating class. And if one person in that group verbally indicates their needs are not being met, well, you can suggest a personalized one-on-one coaching with them. But just remember, program, class, and then individuals. And then what makes a good program? Well, as much as you're motivating, knowledgeable, and empathetic coaching will engage participants, your program must support and enhance that excellence. So you need to create a safe, challenging, and fun environment for your class. Safety. This should be your top priority. Always be prepared to cancel a class, change the planned route, shorten a class, or modify in whatever way you need to make your walkers feel safe. That's just, I can't say it enough, number one. You may, and this is where you will talk to your clients about maybe wearing some reflective gear, especially, if your class is in the afternoon, depending on where it is. And don't forget, you too should be following these rules because your participants want to see you taking their safety seriously. And then challenging, we talked about this some, but after everyone's safe, you want to make sure that you're challenging your participants to the appropriate high levels of exertion, right? Because once again, they might say to themselves, well, I can do this on my own. So think about how you can, maybe you're going to use intervals or what you can do to challenge your clients. And then of course, fun. People who join your walking class, they're choosing to spend their limited leisure time with you. When you add a sense of play and joy to the workout, it brings that secret ingredient that just keeps them returning back to you and wanting to continue to take your courses. All right, another fun fact. I thought this one was a lot of fun. Men would traditionally walk with a woman on their left arm so their right hand could be free for their sword in case of a duel. Like I said before, I have no idea if these are true. I just thought they were fun little tidbits. So I do want to remind you, I know I probably said it a number of times, but take a look. WITS has so many incredible online courses that you can take. And like I said before, if you take the fitness walking one, you can get 6 CECs. And you can take a look at the course ebook. It's the walking solution. Get people walking for results. All right, any questions? We'll see if I have some answers.
All right, so we have just a couple of minutes for questions. There is one from Michael. He wants to know, what do you recommend for a target heart range as a percentage of max heart rate for fitness walking?
Well, now that is going to go back right to when you are, depending on what kind of workout you're doing. Whenever you do a warm up, it's going to be 50%. And then when you're doing the walking, it just depends on what type of workout you have planned for them that day. Are you going to be doing interval? Are you working on one of the progressions? And so that's really hard to just give a blanket statement for that.
All right. Jennifer wants to know, what is your opinion on using ankle or light hand weights to increase target heart rate?
So and you're going to get, if you ask someone else, they're going to have a completely different answer. My opinion is no, that I am looking for them to just worry about their own technique and going through those coaching progressions, working on the form. And really, I'm not a fan of adding the extra weight, something else that they have to handle or deal with.
All right. Karen wanted to know, what do you do differently for warmer clients?
Or what?
Warmer climates.
Oh, warmer. What I do for them in warmer climates? I guess
Yes.
I don't. We still go out walking. Sometimes, the time of day will change, right? You're not going to go out necessarily in the middle of the day during the summertime. A lot of clients will want to do it earlier in the morning. And so that's also too where talking about apparel comes in. On the online class, we talk about hydration and making sure that you're safe during that. And so that's a great question. And I'm going to point you to that online class.
All right. Let's see here. Let me go through some of these. We may not get to all of them today, unfortunately. Stephanie wants to know walking surface recommendations, best to worst, if you have them.
Oh, that's really good. Gosh, well, that is a whole big topic, and it's really hard for me to answer just like that. Obviously, if you're, it's so hard to answer that way. You have to be careful planning your route because you have to be aware of any surfaces that could cause tripping or anything like that. You have to know your group. I live here at the beach. I don't take my group on the beach because it has a slant, it's more difficult. I can't work necessarily on the 4 progressions as well and the body. So I usually try to keep them on a very firm surface and not anything that's rocky or anything like that, or the sand. So I'm more for a firm surface, because once again, I'm really looking at that very particular body alignment and footstep.
All right, let's see here. I'm just trying to get the ones.
It's a great question.
They are. Do you
And
recommend drinking water during walking?
oh yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Tammy wants to know if you have any opinion on compression socks or sleeves for walking.
I'm gonna pass on that one, because I don't. That would be something that for that individual, because I would ask them why, and is it something that their doctor has recommended? Why are they doing that?
All right, and let's see here. I'm just trying to go through here so I'm not missing. Trying to get up and down. See here. Women that wear heels usually have calf problems. Do you know why?
I'm gonna no. I mean, that's
Yeah, that one. That I was just trying to grab a couple questions here, and Carla wants to know: do you recommend? She put cross training, but someone asked earlier about doing fitness walking in a pool.
oh God. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's wonderful. That resistance is fantastic. Going into a pool and doing that, that's a fantastic workout. Absolutely.
Oh, right.
Thank you everybody for being on here. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Let's see here. Ramona says she is a runner and has a shoe preference. Do you have a shoe preference for walking?
Do you mean a brand?
I guess maybe a bit the brand, or I'm assuming like some shoes are designed especially for running, things like that.
Right. So, but so I and I hate to keep pointing back to the online, but there's a whole section where we talk about heel height and how you're not going to want that on the heel, that really big lift. And so it is going to be a little bit different than running. And so if you go and you tell your clients to go into a specialty store, tell them to tell the individuals that it's for fitness walking as opposed to running or cross training.
All right, and this is going to be the last question because we are running over. Do you suggest your clients do 10,000 steps a day?
I do. I use that number. It depends on what they're doing. I talk more just about, I take a look at their day. One of their things I ask them to do is tell me about their day. Or do they sit at their desk? I actually did a webinar, I don't know how long ago it was, Aaron, on desk exercise. And so we just talk about getting up and moving. And so what I do with my clients is I really don't just slap the 10,000 steps on there, which I think is great. And I do that with some people, but I also look at their day and I help them pick out times and ways that they can incorporate more walking. So I work with them individually on specifically with their day and their work and everything.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the questions from there because we are a little bit after 3 o'clock. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. In
Yes, thank
about
you.
3 hours, you're going to get those that clicked on the link and were able to view the presentation. You're going to get an email in about 3 hours with a copy of the recording, as well as a quiz to complete if you would like to obtain the CEC. Just make sure you're checking your junk or spam folder because we are unable to resend those emails. So if you happen to lose it or delete it, we cannot resend it to you. And again, you'll have until Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time to complete that quiz so that we can try and get that back out to you before the Christmas holiday. And I'm going to go ahead and let Martha lead us out.
Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. I hope you're able to get some information that you can use with your clients. And really, like I said, go out and challenge yourself. Start looking at the way people walk. Think about their gaits and do they have a gait deviation? And take a look at your business and where can you fit a fitness walking class? Take care, everybody.